Miles had always believed that every road led somewhere. A town, a city, a forgotten gas station, a dead end. But somewhere, there was always an ending. That belief stayed with him until the night he drove through Black Pine Valley. The valley was not marked on most maps. Few people talked about it. Even fewer had ever visited. Miles discovered it by accident while searching for abandoned places for his travel channel. His audience loved strange locations, old hospitals, empty schools, forgotten churches. The stranger the place, the more views he received. One evening he found a discussion on an old internet forum. The post was almost 20 years old. It contained only one sentence: drive through Black Pine Valley after midnight and count the houses. Do not stop driving. The message had thousands of replies. Most were jokes, some were arguments, but a few replies stood out. They were written by people who sounded genuinely frightened. One user wrote, "I counted 12 houses, but when I left, there were 13. Another wrote, "Never look through the windows." A third simply said, "The road remembers your face." That was enough for Miles. 3 days later, he packed his camera equipment and drove north. The journey took most of the day. As the sun sank lower, the roads became emptier. The trees became thicker. Gas stations disappeared. Cell service weakened. Eventually, his navigation system stopped working entirely. Only one narrow road remained ahead. A weathered sign stood beside it: Black Pine Valley. The letters looked faded, almost erased by time. Miles smiled. Perfect. The kind of place his viewers enjoyed. He mounted a camera on the dashboard, checked the battery, then continued forward. The valley stretched between endless forests. Tall black pines crowded both sides of the road. Their branches tangled together high above, creating a tunnel of darkness. Even before midnight, the area felt unnaturally dim. Miles passed no vehicles, no animals, not even birds. The silence felt wrong. Forests usually contained life. This one seemed empty, as if everything living had chosen to stay away. Around 11:45, he found a small clearing. There he parked and waited. The air outside felt cold, much colder than the weather forecast had predicted. He remained inside the car and reviewed the old forum posts. Most of them repeated the same warning: count the houses, do not stop, do not turn around, do not look through the windows. Miles laughed quietly. Urban legends always included rules. That was part of the fun. At exactly midnight, he started the engine. The headlights illuminated the road ahead. Then he drove deeper into the valley. For several minutes, nothing happened. Only trees, darkness, and silence. Then he saw the first house. It stood alone among the pines. A small wooden home painted white. A single porch light glowed beside the door. Miles slowed slightly. House 1. The building looked normal enough. No movement, no signs of life. He continued forward. 5 minutes later, another house appeared. House 2. This one was larger. Its yard contained an old swing hanging from a tree. The swing moved gently despite the complete absence of wind. Miles noticed that but kept driving. House 3 appeared soon after. Then House 4. Each house stood separated from the others. Each seemed occupied. Lights glowed behind curtains. Porches looked maintained. Yet no cars were visible anywhere. No people, no sounds. Only houses appearing from the darkness, one after another. Miles continued counting aloud. 5, 6, 7. The road curved through the valley, always forward, never branching, never ending. At House 8, something strange happened. His radio turned on by itself. A burst of static filled the vehicle. Miles frowned and switched it off. Seconds later, the radio turned back on. More static. Then a voice, very faint, almost impossible to hear. Miles lowered the volume immediately. The voice vanished. He felt a slight chill, but reminded himself that electrical issues happened all the time. Nothing unusual, nothing supernatural, just bad wiring. House 9 appeared, then 10. The houses became older. Their designs looked decades out of date. Some seemed almost ancient, yet none showed signs of decay. Every window glowed warmly. Every porch light remained lit. Miles checked the clock, 12:21. Odd. The valley was not that large according to maps. He should have reached the far end by now. Instead, the road continued endlessly ahead. House 11 emerged from the darkness, a two-story home with yellow curtains. As he passed, he noticed movement behind one window. Watching him, Miles instinctively glanced toward it. The figure disappeared immediately. His stomach tightened. Probably a resident, nothing more. Still, the sight bothered him, because the figure had seemed unusually tall. Its head almost touched the ceiling. He continued driving. A mile later, House 12 appeared. Miles smiled. According to the old posts, there should be 12 houses. That meant he was nearly finished. The road curved gently left, then right. The forest thickened. Minutes passed. No more houses appeared. Miles relaxed. The whole story was nonsense, just another internet myth. He reached for a bottle of water, then froze. Ahead of him stood another house, House 13. His smile vanished. The building had not been there before. He was certain of it. A large gray home with a wraparound porch. Light shone from every window. Miles slowed. His heartbeat quickened. Maybe he had miscounted. That was possible. The road was dark, the houses similar. Easy mistake. Yet something about the house felt wrong. The architecture seemed unfamiliar. Not old, not modern, something else, as though it belonged to no specific time period. He drove past without stopping. The moment the house disappeared behind him, the radio switched on again. Static exploded through the speakers. Then came a voice, clear this time. Miles, his hands tightened on the steering wheel. The voice had spoken his name. He immediately switched off the radio. For several seconds, he stared ahead, trying to rationalize what he had heard. Maybe a recording, maybe interference, maybe imagination. Yet deep down, he knew exactly what he had heard. The radio had said his name. The road stretched forward. Miles expected the valley to end soon. Instead, the darkness continued. Mile after mile, tree after tree. No exit, no intersection, nothing. He checked the clock again. 12:28. Only 7 minutes had passed. That seemed impossible. He felt as though he had been driving for much longer. Then he noticed something ahead. A white house. His stomach dropped. It was the first house. The same porch light, the same mailbox, the same broken fence. Miles slowed almost to a stop. No, that could not be right. He had been driving forward the entire time. There was no way he could be back at the beginning. Yet there it was, House 1, exactly as before. A cold sensation crept through his chest. For the first time that night, genuine fear entered his mind. He continued driving. 1, 2, 3. The houses appeared again in the exact same order. The swing moving without wind. The glowing windows, the silent porches, everything identical. Miles gripped the steering wheel harder. This had to be some kind of mistake. A loop road, that was all. A hidden circular route. Nothing supernatural, nothing impossible. Still, one question refused to leave his mind. If it was a loop, why had he never turned? When he reached House 8 again, the radio activated once more. Static crackled. Then came a different voice. Do not stop. Miles nearly slammed the brakes. The voice sounded terrified, human, desperate. Before he could react, another voice joined it. Then another. Then dozens. Whispering together. Do not stop. Do not stop. Do not stop. The radio died. Silence returned. Miles felt sweat running down his neck. His pulse hammered inside his ears. He wanted to leave, wanted to turn around, wanted to escape the valley immediately. Yet the warnings from the forum echoed in his mind. Do not turn around. Do not stop. Suddenly, Those rules felt far less amusing. When House 11 appeared again, he deliberately kept his eyes on the road. He refused to look toward the windows. House 12 followed, then 13, the gray house. As he passed it, he noticed something in his rearview mirror. A figure standing on the porch, tall, thin, motionless, watching his car. Miles looked away instantly. His breathing grew faster. The figure had not been there before. He was sure of it. The road continued. The forest darkened. The trees seemed closer now, almost leaning toward the pavement, like silent spectators. Then, something struck the roof of the car. Bang! Miles jumped. Another impact followed, then another. Bang! 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 He looked upward through the windshield, but saw nothing. The sounds continued. Heavy footsteps crossing the roof. Slow, deliberate footsteps, one after another. Something was walking above him. Miles pressed the accelerator. The car surged forward. The footsteps kept pace, still moving overhead, still following. Then they suddenly stopped. Complete silence. Miles dared not look back, dared not stop. Ahead, the road disappeared into endless darkness, and somewhere beyond the reach of his headlights, something seemed to be waiting. Miles kept both hands locked on the steering wheel. His knuckles had turned white. The footsteps on the roof had vanished, but the fear remained. A heavy feeling pressed against his chest. The road ahead seemed darker than before. His headlights no longer reached as far. The beams appeared swallowed by the night itself, as though the darkness was becoming thicker, hungrier, waiting. Miles checked the speedometer, 70 miles per hour, faster than he normally drove on roads like this. Yet the scenery barely changed. The endless walls of pine trees remained on both sides. The same shadows, the same silence, the same road. Then something moved beside the car. A figure running between the trees. Miles caught only a glimpse. Tall, thin, moving impossibly fast, keeping pace with the vehicle. His pulse jumped. He turned his eyes back to the road immediately. When he looked again, the figure was gone. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then he saw the first house again. House 1, the White House. The porch light glowed softly in the darkness. Miles felt his stomach twist. The loop had started again. But this time, something was different. The front door stood open. Last time, it had been closed. Now darkness filled the doorway. A black opening, leading somewhere unseen. Miles drove past without slowing. House 2 appeared. The swing moved harder now. Back and forth, as if someone invisible sat upon it. House 3, House 4, House 5. Each one showed a small change. A curtain pulled aside. A window open. A porch chair turned toward the road. Tiny differences, yet enough to convince Miles that the houses were changing. Watching, learning, waiting. When he reached House 7, his dashboard camera suddenly shut off. The screen went black. Miles cursed under his breath. He pressed buttons repeatedly. Nothing happened. The battery indicator still showed full power, but the camera remained dead. Then a message appeared on the screen. "Welcome back, Miles." His blood ran cold. The message vanished a second later. The screen returned to black. Miles felt panic growing inside him. Nothing about this was normal. Nothing could explain what was happening. House 8 approached. The radio clicked on again. Static filled the speakers. Then came a voice, a man's voice, weak and trembling. "Please don't look at them." Miles froze. The voice continued. "I looked through a window. Don't make the same mistake." Then screaming erupted from the speakers. Terrible screaming. Raw terror. The sound lasted only 2 seconds before the radio died. Silence returned. Miles wished it had not. The silence felt even worse. He reached House 11. This time he accidentally glanced toward a window. only for a fraction of a second. But it was enough. Someone stood inside. Not a person. Not really. The shape looked human from a distance, yet its arms hung far too low, its neck bent at an impossible angle, and its eyes reflected light, like an animal standing in darkness. Miles immediately looked away. His breathing became uneven. He regretted looking. Even that brief glance felt wrong, as though the thing inside had noticed him, recognized him. House 12 appeared. Then 13, the gray house, the largest of them all. As Miles drove past, every light inside the house switched off simultaneously. The building vanished into darkness. For several seconds, he could see nothing. Then a single light appeared upstairs. One window, one room, and inside stood a silhouette watching him. Miles accelerated. The silhouette remained visible long after it should have disappeared, long after the house itself was gone. Finally, it vanished. Miles swallowed hard, then noticed something strange. The road ahead contained tire tracks, fresh tire tracks. Someone had driven here recently, maybe even tonight. For the first time since entering the valley, he felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe another traveler was nearby. Maybe someone could explain this nightmare. He followed the tracks. Minutes passed. Then the headlights illuminated another vehicle, an old pickup truck parked on the roadside. Miles almost cried with relief. A real vehicle, a real person. He slowed carefully. The truck appeared abandoned. Its driver's door stood open. The engine was off. No lights, no movement. Miles hesitated. Every instinct told him not to stop. The warnings echoed in his head. Do not stop. Do not stop. Do not stop. Yet another part of him desperately wanted answers. Finally, he decided to roll past slowly without leaving his vehicle. As he approached the truck, his headlights illuminated the inside. The driver's seat was empty, but written across the windshield were words scratched into the glass. Don't let the road see you. Miles stared in horror. Then he noticed something beneath the truck. A hand, a human hand, pale fingers sticking out from underneath. Miles slammed the accelerator. The car shot forward. He did not look back. His heart pounded violently. The image of that hand burned inside his mind. Several minutes later, the road dipped downward. Fog appeared, thick white fog spreading across the pavement. Visibility dropped immediately. The trees vanished behind a wall of white. Miles reduced speed slightly. The fog grew denser. Then shapes began appearing within it. People, dozens of people, standing beside the road. Motionless, watching. Men, women, children, all perfectly still. None moved as Miles passed. None blinked. They simply stared. Miles kept driving, refusing to meet their eyes. The figures continued for nearly a mile, then disappeared. The fog cleared, the road returned, and once again, House 1 stood ahead. Miles almost screamed. The loop had restarted, but now every house looked occupied. Figures stood in every window, watching him pass. Dozens of faces, hundreds of eyes. Miles focused entirely on the road. He refused to look directly at them, feel them, following him. House 5, House 6, House 7. Every window contained someone. House 8. The radio switched on. No static this time. Only a calm female voice. Miles, you already made a mistake. His breath caught. The voice continued. You look through the window. Now they know who you are. The radio clicked off. Miles felt genuine terror grip him. Because deep down, he knew she was right. He had looked, only for a second, but he had looked. House 11 appeared. The creature remained inside, waiting near the glass. This time it smiled, a wide, impossible smile stretching across its face. Miles nearly lost control of the car. He looked away instantly. House 12, then 13, the gray house. But something had changed again. The porch was crowded. People stood there, at least 20 of them, perfectly still, all facing the road, all watching Miles drive by. And among them, he saw himself. Miles slammed on the brakes for half a second before catching himself. The figure standing on the porch looked exactly like him. Same clothes, same face, same height, same expression. The duplicate watched him pass, smiling faintly. Then the gray house vanished behind him. Miles accelerated harder than ever. His chest felt tight. His hands trembled. That had not been possible. Nothing about this place was possible, yet he had seen it. Of himself, standing among the watchers, waiting on the porch of House 13. Then something appeared in his rearview mirror. Headlights. Another vehicle, following him. Miles stared. The vehicle gained speed rapidly, emerging from the darkness. An old black sedan. Its headlights flickered strangely. The car closed the distance, closer, 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 until it drove directly behind him. Only a few feet away, Miles could not see the driver. The windshield looked completely black. Then the sedan flashed its headlights, once, twice, 3 times, as if signaling him, warning him, or perhaps trying to get his attention. Miles ignored it. The sedan remained behind him for several miles, then suddenly accelerated, passing his car on the left. As it moved beside him, Miles finally saw the driver, and instantly wished he had not. The driver was himself. The exact same face, the exact same eyes, the exact same clothes. The duplicate looked directly at him, smiled, then sped into the darkness ahead. A few seconds later, the black sedan disappeared completely, as if it had never existed. Miles sat frozen behind the wheel, unable to process what he had just witnessed. Then his radio turned on one final time. A whisper emerged from the speakers, barely audible. House 13 is waiting for you. The radio died, and far ahead in the darkness, Miles saw lights appearing once again. The lights of the houses. The loop was beginning again. But this time, something told him. The road was bringing him closer to the truth and closer to whatever lived inside House 13. Miles stared at the distant lights ahead. The houses were waiting again. Every loop felt different now. The road was changing, and so was he. His eyes burned from exhaustion. His hands ached from gripping the steering wheel for what felt like hours. Yet the dashboard clock still showed only a little after midnight. That was impossible. He had driven far longer than that. At least it felt that way. The road no longer obeyed normal rules. Time no longer obeyed normal rules. Nothing did. The first house emerged from the darkness. Its front door remained open. A warm yellow light spilled onto the porch. Miles drove past, then frowned. Someone stood inside the doorway. A woman. She was smiling. Not the horrible, unnatural smile of the creatures he had seen. A normal smile. A human smile. For a moment she looked almost familiar. Then the house vanished behind him. Miles felt a strange pull inside his chest. A feeling he could not explain. House 2 appeared. The swing moved violently now, back and forth, faster than ever, as though invisible hands were pushing it. House 3, House 4, House 5. Every window contained figures. Every porch contained watchers. The entire road seemed alive, observing him, studying him, waiting. When he reached House 7, the dashboard camera suddenly turned back on. The screen flickered. Static covered the image. Then a video appeared. Miles nearly drove off the road. The camera was showing footage of him. Tonight. From years ago. A younger version of himself stood beside a lake, laughing, talking to someone off camera. The memory hit him immediately. Summer vacation, age 16, a trip with his family. But how could the camera know that? The footage changed. Another memory appeared. Miles graduating high school, his parents smiling proudly. Then another, his first apartment, his first job, his first heartbreak. Memory after memory flashed across the screen. Events no camera should possess. Events nobody should have recorded. Then the footage stopped. Words appeared across the display. We remember everything. The screen went black again. Miles felt cold sweat running down his back. The road was not merely watching him. It knew him. Somehow, it knew his entire life. The realization terrified him more than anything else so far. House 8 approached. The radio clicked on. A different voice spoke. An older man, calm, tired, resigned. I have been here for 31 years. Miles nearly stopped breathing. The voice continued. If you can hear this, then you still have a chance. Do not enter any house, no matter what you see, no matter who calls your name. The road wants you inside. That is how it keeps people. Static interrupted him. Then the voice returned briefly. If House 13 opens its door, run. The radio died. Miles swallowed hard. 31 years. Had someone truly been trapped here that long? The road lying again. Ahead, the houses continued appearing one by one. But something new caught his attention. The numbers on the mailboxes. Previously, they had matched the order of the houses. Now they did not. House 9 displayed mailbox 24. House 10 displayed mailbox 91. House 11 displayed mailbox 300. The numbers kept increasing, growing larger. Impossible numbers, as though each loop added more years, more victims, more forgotten lives. Then House 13 appeared. Miles immediately noticed the change. The front door was open. A single light glowed inside, and someone stood in the entrance. His mother. Miles slammed his foot against the brake before stopping himself. His heart nearly exploded. It looked exactly like her. Every detail. Every feature, every movement. She smiled gently, just as she always had. Then she raised one hand, inviting him closer. Miles felt tears forming in his eyes. For one dangerous second he considered stopping. The figure looked so real, so perfectly real. Then he remembered the warning. The road wants you inside. Miles accelerated. The figure remained standing in the doorway, watching silently, as the house disappeared behind him. A few seconds later his phone rang. Miles jumped. No signal bars had appeared all night, yet now his phone displayed an incoming call. Mom. His blood froze. The phone continued ringing. Miles stared at it. The call should not have been possible. His mother was hundreds of miles away, and there was no service here. Ringing continued. Again? Again? Finally he answered. Silence. Several seconds passed. Then came a whisper. Miles, come home. The voice sounded exactly like his mother. Then another voice joined it, and another, and another. Hundreds of voices speaking together. Come home. Come home. Come home. Miles threw the phone onto the passenger seat. The call disconnected immediately. The screen cracked on impact. For a long moment, he simply drove, trying to steady his breathing, trying to think, trying not to panic. Then he noticed something impossible ahead. The road ended. Miles sat upright. A massive iron gate blocked the pavement. Black metal bars stretched across the road from forest to forest. Behind the gate stood an enormous mansion, larger than all 13 houses combined. Its windows glowed faintly in the darkness. Its towers vanished into the night sky. Miles had never seen it before. The mansion should not exist. Yet there it was, waiting. The gate slowly creaked open. Miles stared in disbelief. No one touched it. No mechanism moved. The gate simply opened by itself, inviting him forward. His instincts screamed at him to turn around. But another thought emerged. Maybe this was the way out. Maybe the mansion held answers. Maybe it was the source of everything. Miles hesitated. then drove through. The gate closed behind him immediately. The sound echoed across the valley. The driveway wound through dead trees, twisting toward a mansion. As he approached, he noticed hundreds of vehicles parked outside. Cars from every decade, some ancient, some modern, some rusted almost beyond recognition. Others looked brand new, all abandoned, all silent. Miles parked near the entrance. For several seconds, he remained inside the vehicle. The old warning echoed inside his head. Do not stop. Do not enter. Yet he had already broken one rule. He had stopped. Nothing happened. No creatures emerged. No monsters attacked. Only silence surrounded him. Finally, he stepped outside. Cold air struck his face. The mansion towered above him. Its front doors stood open. Warm light spilled from inside. The atmosphere felt strangely welcoming, almost comforting. And that frightened him more than any monster could, because nightmares were supposed to look frightening. This place looked inviting. Miles slowly entered. The doors closed behind him. The sound echoed throughout the building. A giant hallway stretched before him. Portraits covered the walls. Thousands of portraits. Men, women, children, families, all staring outward. Miles approached one of the paintings. His stomach twisted. The person in the portrait looked familiar. It was the man whose voice had spoken through the radio. The one trapped for 31 years. Another portrait. Another face from the radio. Then another. And another. Every voice he had heard seemed represented here, immortalized on the walls, as though the mansion collected them, kept them, remembered them forever. Miles continued deeper inside. The hallway eventually opened into a massive circular room, and there, at the center, stood a model of Lost Mile Road. A perfect miniature version. Every tree, every house, every curve, everything recreated in astonishing detail. Miles slowly approached it, then his heart nearly stopped. Tiny figures moved around the miniature road. People, hundreds of tiny people, walking, driving, running, living entire lives inside the model. And among them, one tiny figure looked exactly like Miles. The miniature Miles drove a tiny car along the miniature road, repeating the same endless loop, again and again and again. A voice suddenly spoke behind him. You finally came. Miles spun around. A tall man stood at the edge of the room, perfectly dressed, perfectly calm. His smile looked polite, yet something about him felt deeply wrong. His eyes contained no life, no emotion, only endless darkness. Who are you? Miles asked. The man smiled wider. I am the keeper of the road. The answer sent chills through Miles. The keeper slowly walked closer. Every traveler leaves something behind, a memory, a fear, a regret. The road feeds on them. It always has. Miles backed away. What do you want from me? The keeper stopped beside the miniature road, then pointed toward the tiny version of Miles. The road already chose you. Miles looked down. The miniature figure had stopped driving. It was now staring upward, directly at him, smiling. The same smile he had seen on the duplicate versions of himself. The keeper spoke softly. House 13 is almost ready. Miles felt terror rise inside him. Ready for what? The keeper smiled. For its new resident. At that exact moment, every light inside the mansion went out. Darkness swallowed the room, and somewhere deep within the building, a door slowly opened, followed by the sound of footsteps. Hundreds of footsteps, coming closer. Darkness swallowed the mansion. Miles stood frozen. The keeper had vanished. Only seconds earlier he had been standing beside the miniature road. Now there was nothing. No movement. No sound except the approaching footsteps. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, coming from every direction. The noise echoed through the walls. Above him, below him, behind him, closer every second. Miles pulled out his phone. The cracked screen emitted a weak glow, barely enough to illuminate the room. A miniature model of Lost Mile Road still sat at the center. But something had changed. The tiny figures inside were no longer walking. They were all staring upward, toward him. Every single one. Tiny faces tilted toward the darkness. Tiny smiles stretching wider and wider. Miles backed away, his pulse hammered inside his chest. Then the miniature version of himself moved. The tiny Miles stepped out of the tiny car, slowly turned, and pointed directly at him. The approaching footsteps immediately stopped. Silence crashed over the room. Miles could hear his own breathing, nothing else. Then a single voice emerged from the darkness. "Run." It came from somewhere behind him. An old man's voice, the same one from the radio. The man who claimed he had been trapped for 31 years. Run now. Miles did not hesitate. He turned and sprinted. The weak light from his phone bounced wildly across the hallway. Portraits flashed past on both sides. Thousands of painted eyes watching him, following him. Then the portraits began moving. Faces shifted inside their frames. Blinking, smiling, turning their heads. People trapped inside paint. Alive, watching, waiting. A loud crash erupted behind him. Miles looked back. The circular room had disappeared. The doorway now opened into another hallway, longer than before. The mansion was changing, rearranging itself like a living creature. He kept running. The footsteps returned, much closer now. A glance over his shoulder revealed movement in the darkness. Tall figures emerging from side corridors. Human-shaped, but wrong. Their arms dragged across the floor. Their heads tilted unnaturally. Their eyes glowed pale white. Miles ran faster. The hallway eventually ended at a staircase. He charged upward, taking steps 3 at a time. The creatures followed below, their footsteps multiplying, growing louder. Then he reached the second floor. A long corridor stretched ahead. 13 doors lined the walls. Miles slowed. Every door bore a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 13. His stomach tightened. The final door stood at the very end. Door 13. Unlike the others, its handle gleamed gold. A faint light leaked from beneath it. Miles immediately remembered the keeper. House 13 is almost ready for its new resident. A cold realization struck him. These doors represented the houses, and door 13 represented the final destination. The place where the road kept them forever. Suddenly, door 1 opened. A woman stepped out. The same woman Miles had seen standing inside the first house. She looked completely normal. Middle-aged, friendly, human. "Please help me," she whispered. Tears filled her eyes. "I have been trapped here for years." Miles hesitated. The woman looked terrified, genuine, desperate. Then door 2 opened. A young man emerged. "Don't listen to her," he shouted. "She isn't real." Immediately door 3 opened, then door 4, then door 5. People poured into the corridor. Dozens of them, arguing, begging, warning, screaming, each claiming to be trapped, each claiming to know the way out. The chaos exploded around him. Miles could no longer tell who was real, or if any of them were. Then every voice suddenly stopped. All heads turned toward door 13. The golden handle slowly rotated. Click. The door opened, and every person in the hallway immediately dropped to their knees. Fear filled their faces. Absolute fear. Something stood inside the room. Miles could not see it clearly. Only darkness. A darkness deeper than anything else in the mansion. The kneeling figures began trembling. One whispered, "It's awake." Another started crying. A third covered his face. The darkness inside room 13 moved. Miles took a step backward, then another. The thing inside the room was far worse than the creatures chasing him. Far worse than the keeper. Far worse than the road itself. A voice emerged from the darkness. Miles. The sound was familiar. His own voice. The exact sound of his own voice. Miles froze. The darkness shifted again, and a figure stepped forward. It was him. Not similar. Not close. Exactly him. Same face. Same eyes. Same clothing. Every detail perfect. The duplicate smiled. "You took a long time," it said. Miles backed away. "What are you?" The duplicate laughed softly. "I am what stays when people leave." The answer made no sense, yet somehow Miles understood. The road copied people, collected them, created replacements. The duplicates remained behind, while the originals disappeared. Or perhaps, the duplicates became the originals. The thought made him feel sick. The duplicate walked closer. Every loop makes another version. Every fear, every memory, every regret. The road keeps them all. Miles glanced behind him. The creatures were approaching from the staircase. The duplicate blocked the hallway ahead. He was trapped. Then the duplicate smiled wider, and suddenly the entire mansion shook. A deafening roar echoed through the building. The walls cracked. Portraits fell. Windows shattered. Every trapped person looked around in confusion. Something was happening. Something unexpected. The duplicate smile vanished. "No," it whispered. Miles heard another sound. Far away. Then another and another. Hundreds of engines. The parked vehicles outside. Every abandoned vehicle had started simultaneously. The roar grew louder. The mansion shook violently. The trapped people stared at one another. Hope appeared in their eyes. The old man's voice echoed somewhere nearby. "The road is losing control. Run, Miles, run." The duplicate lunged forward. Miles dodged and sprinted. The hallway erupted into chaos. People ran in every direction. The creatures screamed. Doors slammed open. Walls split apart. The entire structure seemed to be collapsing. Miles raced toward the staircase. The duplicate chased him. Only a few feet behind. Its footsteps matched his perfectly, like an echo, like a shadow. Miles reached the first floor, then the entrance hall. The massive front doors stood open. Outside, every abandoned vehicle had turned on. Headlights illuminated the night, hundreds of beams piercing the darkness. Miles sprinted toward the exit. The duplicate grabbed his jacket. Miles twisted violently. The fabric tore. He broke free and burst through the front doors. The cold night air hit his face. For the first time in hours, the forest no longer felt silent. Engines roared everywhere. Car horns blared. The abandoned vehicles began moving, one after another, driving toward the road, toward the 13 houses, as if following some invisible command. Miles jumped into his car, started the engine, and accelerated away from the mansion. Behind him, the building trembled. Cracks spread across its walls. The duplicate stood in the entrance, watching, smiling once more. But now its smile looked uncertain, afraid. Miles sped toward the road. The headlights of hundreds of vehicles filled the valley, all racing in the same direction, all heading toward House 13. Then the radio turned on one final time. A voice whispered, "You still have one loop left." Miles felt dread settle inside his chest. Ahead, the houses were appearing again, one by one. The final loop had begun, and somewhere beyond House 13, the truth of Lost Mile Road was waiting. Miles gripped the steering wheel as the final loop began. The radio had gone silent. The mansion was disappearing behind him, yet he could still see its collapsing silhouette in the distance. The road ahead glowed beneath hundreds of headlights. Abandoned vehicles raced through the valley. Old trucks, broken sedans, rust-covered station wagons, cars from different decades, moving in the same direction, all heading toward House 13. Miles followed them. His heart pounded inside his chest. He knew this was the end, one way or another. The road was preparing for something. The first house appeared, Its porch light exploded the moment he passed. Glass scattered across the lawn. The house itself began fading, like a photograph being erased. Miles stared in disbelief. The second house appeared, its windows shattered, the walls cracked. Then the entire building dissolved into darkness. The third house suffered the same fate. Then the fourth, the fifth, one after another. The houses began collapsing, as though whatever power held them together was failing. The road itself trembled. The pavement cracked beneath his tires. Trees bent violently. A distant roar echoed through the valley. Miles pressed harder on the accelerator. The abandoned vehicles surrounded him now. None had visible drivers, yet all continued forward, guided by some unseen force. Then House 8 appeared. The radio suddenly came alive. Miles, the voice belonged to the old man, the one who claimed to be trapped for 31 years. Listen carefully. You must reach House 13 before the road repairs itself. Miles asked. Static crackled. Then came the answer. Destroy the original. The transmission ended. Miles frowned. The original. What original? Before he could think further, House 9 collapsed ahead of him. Its roof folded inward. Its walls dissolved into black mist. The road shook again. Then House 10 vanished completely, as though it had never existed. Miles felt hope for the first time. Maybe the nightmare was ending. Maybe the road could be destroyed. Maybe everyone trapped here could finally escape. House 11 disappeared. Then House 12, and suddenly it stood ahead. House 13, larger than before, far larger. The gray house now resembled a mansion. Its windows stretched upward into darkness. Its porch expanded across the entire road. The structure seemed alive, growing, breathing, watching. Every abandoned vehicle accelerated toward it. Miles followed. The front door slowly opened. Darkness waited inside. The vehicles drove directly through the entrance, one after another, vanishing into the black interior. Miles swallowed hard, then drove inside as well. Darkness consumed him. For several seconds he saw nothing. Then, light returned. Miles slammed the brakes. He was no longer inside a house. He stood in a massive underground chamber, bigger than a football stadium. Thousands of people filled the room, every victim the road had ever taken. Men, women, children, people from different centuries, different eras, different lives, all staring toward the center of the chamber. Miles followed their gaze and finally understood. At the center stood a tree, an enormous black tree. Its roots spread across the entire cavern. Its branches vanished into darkness overhead. Faces covered the bark. Thousands of human faces, frozen inside the wood, crying, screaming, whispering. The sight made Miles feel sick. Then he noticed something horrifying. Each face belonged to a missing person. Each victim had become part of the tree. The road had never been the true monster. Neither had the houses, neither had the keeper. Everything served the tree. The road fed it. The houses trapped victims for it. The keeper protected it. The tree was the original, the source, the heart of the nightmare. A familiar voice spoke behind him. Now you understand. Miles turned. The keeper stood there. His calm smile had vanished. For the first time, he looked frightened. The road exists because of it. The houses exist because of it. I exist because of it. The keeper looked toward the massive tree. It's dying. The mansion collapsed because it's dying. The loops are breaking. The prison is failing. Miles looked around. Then why not let everyone leave? The keeper laughed sadly. Because it won't die alone. The tree suddenly moved. The entire cavern shook. A branch descended from above. Then another. Then dozens more. The roots erupted across the floor. People screamed. Chaos exploded through the chamber. Awake. Miles ran. Roots burst from the ground around him. Branches lashed through the air. Victims fled in every direction. The keeper remained where he stood, watching the destruction. Then Miles noticed something glowing near the base of the tree. A single red light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Instinctively he knew that was the center, the core, the weakness. Miles sprinted toward it. Roots chased him. Branches crashed down around him. The cavern shook violently. The glowing object grew larger. Then he finally reached it. A heart. An enormous black heart embedded within the roots, beating slowly, keeping the entire nightmare alive. The tree roared. Thousands of trapped faces screamed together. Miles looked around desperately, searching for anything he could use. Then he saw an abandoned pickup truck nearby, one of the vehicles that had entered the house. The engine still ran. An idea flashed through his mind. It was insane, but everything about this place was insane. Miles jumped into the truck, pressed the accelerator, and drove directly toward the heart. The roots immediately reacted. They surged toward him, trying to stop him, trying to protect the core. Miles refused to slow down. The truck bounced violently across the cavern floor. Branches struck the windshield, glass shattered, roots wrapped around the vehicle. But he kept going, faster, closer, closer. The heart filled the windshield. The tree screamed. Miles slammed the accelerator completely down, into the heart. The impact shook the cavern. A deafening crack echoed through the darkness. Then, silence. For one impossible second, everything stopped. The roots froze, the branches froze, the faces froze, the heart split down the middle. A blinding white light erupted outward. The tree released a scream unlike anything Miles had ever heard. Then it shattered. The entire tree exploded into millions of fragments. Light consumed the cavern, the road, the houses, the mansion, everything. Miles closed his eyes, certain he was about to die. Then, nothing. Silence. Warm sunlight touched his face. Miles slowly opened his eyes. He was sitting inside his own car, parked beside a highway. Morning sunlight filled the sky. Birds chirped nearby. Normal birds, normal sounds, normal life. For several moments he simply sat there, trying to understand, trying to breathe, trying to believe. His phone displayed a signal. The date was correct. Only one night had passed. Miles stepped outside. A highway sign stood nearby. Black Pine Valley, 12 miles. The valley still existed, but something was different. The name beneath it had been painted over. Another sign stood beside the road. Abandoned area, road closed. Miles stared toward the distant forest. The darkness was gone. The unnatural feeling had vanished. Everything looked ordinary, peaceful. Finally, after a long moment, he returned to his car and drove away. He never uploaded the footage because the dashboard camera contained nothing. No houses, no road, no mansion. Only hours of empty highway. Nobody would have believed him anyway. Years later, Miles still dreamed about Lost Mile Road. Most dreams faded by morning, but one dream always returned. The same dream. Every single time, he would see a small gray house standing alone in the darkness. A house with a golden door. And on the porch stood a man smiling. A man who looked exactly like him. Watching, waiting. As though some small piece of House 13 had survived. As though some part of the road still remembered his face, and perhaps always would.